You're listening to my answers for the 2021 card reader Frequently Asked Questions by Amethyst Ascension here on Blind Robert Brown, Hospitality, Insight, and Inspiration from a Brigidine Perspective. Hey everybody, Blind Rob here yet again. I know it feels like it's been forever since I made a video. Yes, I know. I pretty much say that just about every time I make a video these past few years, and it's a really terrible habit. But then again, going on hiatus the way that I have been doing the past few years has been a terrible habit as well. I know some of you, those of you whose videos I watch on a very frequent basis, who I've interacted with in the comments section, know that I have been trying to get back to making videos yet again, and that there are a few video topics that a few of you have suggested or asked me to tackle at some point, and I still plan on doing them at some point down the road. But I figured that the best way to get back onto the video making, bandwagon, so to speak, get back into the groove. I'm sorry, but you threw off the Emperor's Groove. Sorry. I couldn't resist. I am a huge fan of The Emperor's New Groove, and I am a huge fan of Disney movies. Not so much the company, but I am a huge fan of Disney's movies, especially their animated movies. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, I digress. I figured the best way to get back into my groove, if you will, to make, to making videos like I used to, is to participate in several community sort of kind of interaction projects or topics or conversations that are going on right now, and there's a ton of them, and I'm still in the process of looking around and seeing which ones I feel like it's either appropriate for me to sink my teeth in, so to speak, and talk about and respond to, or ones that I'm at least interested enough that I feel like that I can can talk about. And there are a few, and I will get to them when I get to them. Speaking of which, I know that the video that I'm doing right now, came out in a couple weeks ago, and I would have done this response then, but I've been sick for the majority of November, especially around Thanksgiving, and I've only just now gotten back to my, back to full health, a few days ago. And then, of course, I got a bunch of stuff that's going on, in my personal private life behind the scenes, so to speak, and I've only just found the time and the space and the energy and the freedom to record this today. So, speaking of which, I know that I had a really great start in making videos at the very beginning of 2020, and I'd say the very end of 2019 going into the first couple months, I'd say around February or March of 2020, I was on a roll getting back into the community, interacting with people, meeting a lot of new YouTubers, some epically phenomenal YouTubers that I would love nothing more than to become friends with. And unfortunately, a lot of terrible things has happened back in 2020 and here in 2021 that has prevented me from doing so, and has just kind of completely shattered my stride, completely annihilated my groove, and just, I haven't been able to really dedicate the time or the effort to get back into making content. I do apologize about that. I know that I don't need to say this because we as a global community has been dealing with the terrible situation of COVID for the past 2 years now. But actually, COVID was and is the least of my worries as far as why things have been just downright terrible for me the past 2 years, and why I ended up basically stuttering and falling away from the great stride that I was finding myself in video making wise back in the beginning of 2020. Everything from dealing with a emotionally and mentally abusive relationship to starting a relationship with one of my best friends, which is still very much going strong, to uh, dealing with shenanigans involving my elderly family members. One has dementia or something similar to it. The other has really bad Parkinson's, like the whole 9 yards. It's just been insanity the past 2 years, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about those topics. Maybe I'll go in a little in depth at some point and share my thoughts and my emotions and everything that's been going on. I know that some of those topics, some of the experiences that I've gone through the past 2 years, probably could make some really good content, especially as far as like sharing what's deep down in my heart and the pain and the struggle and the growth and development I've gone through. Also, some interesting spiritual growth, development, and changes I've gone through the past couple of years, and I definitely want to share and talk about that at some point. But speaking of the stride that I found myself in early 2020, I had an amazing conversation with I forget her name, and I am so sorry if you're listening to this video. I feel terrible. It takes me a while to get used to people's names and get them memorized in my head. But she is the epically phenomenal YouTuber behind the YouTube channel of Amethyst Ascension. And I went on to her channel and did an interview with her. I think it was called something like the Channel Spotlight or something in early 2020. I think it was in February, but I could be wrong about that. But it was amazing. I had a great time. She was a wonderful host. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Not that thing. Not the Channel Spotlight, but just like any other kind of like interview, because she was just a whole lot of fun, great energy to chat with, and a YouTuber that I definitely have been enjoying watching her videos over the past 2 years. Haven't really had too much of a chance to interact with her, or respond to any of her videos, which is really disappointing, but that's how life goes. So I figured, because I saw her video, the video that she created a couple weeks ago called the 2021 Card Reader Frequently Asked Questions, Inquiring Minds Want to Know. And I thought that was really interesting, and I definitely wanted to respond to it, to reply to it, to put my 2 cents in, so to speak, and to share my thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and my perspective as a diviner, as a fortune teller. So yeah, and also I have an interesting relationship with the Divination community, especially card reading. I'd say back when I did my Channel Spotlight interview with her on her channel, I mentioned that I do not read tarot, and that has kind of changed a little bit, which you will see a little bit as I tackle the questions in this FAQ. But I've kind of expanded my horizons a little bit and started reading various card systems, mostly Lenormand, Oracle to some extent, and Tarot to some extent, though I will never ever consider myself a tarot reader, and that simply because, in my perspective, a tarot reader is more than just someone who reads tarot. It is someone who tarot is their life, their perspective, their worldview for the most part from a divinatory perspective. Like they live, they breathe, they perceive the world through tarot first and foremost. Almost, if not everything, then almost everything is kind of seen through a lens of tarot. And from that perspective, I am most definitely not a tarot reader. I've never been a tarot reader. I never will be a tarot reader. I think tarot is a valid and powerful system of divination. I think that tarot readers are awesome. There are several tarot readers that I have the privilege and the honor and the pleasure of having awesome friendships with. So it's not like me sitting here and bashing it. I'm just saying, this is my perspective. And if anyone is interested, I am more than willing to at some point sit down and flesh out and go far more in detail and in depth on my perspective of exactly what a tarot reader is and why I don't consider myself one and never will. But I do consider myself a card reader to some extent, though nowhere near to the extent I consider myself a rune reader. And I think that you can be a reader of tarot without necessarily being a tarot reader. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know that this FAQ is specifically for card readers, but most, if not all, of the questions could also be answered from a perspective of systems outside of cartomancy. And that's actually what I plan on doing with my answers to this FAQ. I am actually going to be answering this from two perspectives. I'm going to be answering the questions first and foremost from a perspective of someone who primarily reads with Ogham and Elder Futhark, but I'm also going to answer the questions in the same facet of the video, or same part of the video, from a perspective of someone who has been expanding their horizons and reading cards a little bit this past year. So maybe you might be considered that a little bit of me cheating. I don't know. I personally don't care. I think I'm still going to have a lot of fun with this. The main reason why I wanted to do this video and why I wanted to answer the questions from this FAQ is A, because I think it will be a lot of fun. B, I definitely want to share my perspective. I think that if nothing else, I can provide a unique and to some extent fresh perspective from someone who is definitely part of the divination community as a whole, but only really dwell on the outskirts of the tarot community. And also because, doing these kind of videos allows oneself to really get out there and interact with people within the community. And if nothing else, that is the main reason I feel like why we're on this platform in the first place. I mean, besides sharing our beliefs, our thoughts, our feelings, our perspectives, to express ourselves in so many ways. Maybe sometimes to teach, maybe sometimes to mentor. I don't know. There are 1,000 different aspects along the road of the spectrum to, why, one finds themselves there on YouTube to be a content creator, so on and so forth. So with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump to the questions and truly get this party started. Alright, question number 1. What is your favorite reading system to use? Rider-Waite's system, Thoth, or Marseille? So my favorite reading system to use, to work with, to read with is actually first and foremost, outside of cartomancy as a whole, would be the Ogham, the Irish Ogham. And I've been reading with the Ogham for 15 years now. 15 years this past November. And it's just, it's an extension of my practice as an Irish polytheist. Like, I got into it originally because, I was practicing Irish polytheism to begin with. I was getting into the practice of filioch, or that of a fili, the ritual poet. And, wanted a divination system that I could work with. And at the time, I was really in the later stages of losing my eyesight, especially to the point where I could no longer read print. And so I was looking for something that was, by its very nature, far more tactile than, say, tarot, oracle, or Lenormand. And Ogham is definitely that. Like, traditionally, traditionally it was carved on stone, it was carved on wood, it was etched. So yeah, and kind of in the same vein with the runes. Like, I got into Norse polytheism back in 2010. So I've been reading Elder Futhark runes for 11 years this past October. And once again, getting into Norse polytheism, I really wanted a divination system that was far more connected to the religion itself, to the spiritual practice itself. And the runes as a whole is definitely that. It's definitely connected to the various Germanic tribes and parts of various forms of Germanic faith. And I just find, and the reason why I chose the Elder Futhark is because I find it easiest to read out of the various forms of the runes. I did look into the Anglo-Saxon Futhark at one point, but it's just that the shapes of the runes are just far more intricate for me to read with my fingers. And of course, with the Ogham, the majority of the symbols kind of look very much like tally marks to some extent. So, of course, not all of them, but most, enough that it's like really easy to read, tactile with your fingers. So yeah, and of course, because I do practice Irish and Norse polytheism, among other things, I am a multiple tradition polytheist, multiple faith polytheist. But because Irish and Norse polytheism are my primary forms of spirituality, just that alone, yeah, they're very important to me. They're very much a vital part of my divination practice. But the fact that they're extremely tactile also helps really well. Like, as someone who is blind getting into divination, like especially with the Ogham, it definitely salvaged my ability to practice spirituality, because I am of the opinion that divination is a vital practice, especially when you're interacting with the divine, with otherworldly beings, so on and so forth. Of course, Ogham and the Elder Futhark isn't just for divination. They are also worked with very heavily within the various forms of magic found within the cultures that they are connected to and natively a part of. And yes, I do utilize both systems when I'm practicing magic, from either a perspective of an Irish polytheist or the perspective of a Norse polytheist. Moving to cartomancy, my favorite system of cartomancy to read with is actually Lenormand. And that's because I find that the symbols, the names, are pretty straightforward across the board. I also find that the way of reading them, where you read them as a pair of cards, no matter if you're just pulling two cards or if you're reading one of the various traditional spreads that's found within Lenormand. One is the subject, the other is describing the subject, so on and so forth. And it's you're building a story. And yes, I'm fully aware that you can do the same thing with tarot and oracle, but Lenormand does it in a way that I just find it a lot easier. Also, with Lenormand, yes, there's some decks that add extra cards and they might slightly change the card names, but from someone coming into Lenormand, I don't have to know the images. The titles of the cards, the names of the cards say it all, and it is extremely easy for me to dive deep into the rich meanings and to learn how to read with them and work with them a hell of a lot more than any attempt that I've had with tarot. So Oracle is kind of weird, because unlike with tarot or with Lenormand, Oracle decks aren't really a broad sort of one singular system. Like, each deck is almost a complete system encapsulated with itself, so it depends really on the Oracle. But I do prefer Oracle more than tarot in general. I don't know. I just find the themes of each oracle deck to be really unique and really interesting, depending on the oracle decks that I'm fond of. When it comes to tarot, I actually prefer Marseille the most. I find Marseille, the Marseille system, to be the easiest system to work with, to learn, to actually get to know the meanings. I don't know why that is. I guess because when trying to get into tarot for the first time, I had a hell of a time trying to really piece together um, what the minor arcana meant, and of course with each deck, especially within the Rider Waite system or systems that are very strongly connected or in line with the Rider Waite system, yes, they more or less have all of the main symbology to them, but each deck might take a different perspective or a different might focus on a different aspect of those group of symbols that is bound within the symbols and imagery. Also with Rider Waite system, a lot of, if not all of the Rider Waite based decks I have come across, um, regardless if there are keywords added to the cards, regardless if there's a book, it's very heavily bound with the images. And I find with the Marseille, that's the opposite. And as a blind person, I find that a lot easier for me to really learn, to really adapt to the symbology of the cards. I don't know if that is actually true or not. That's just the way I perceive things. I'm not a fan of Thoth at all. In fact, I refuse to read with Thoth wholesale. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty reasons right here, but to say that I am not a fan of Aleister Crowley is like saying that fire burns if you touch it barehanded. It's going to burn and it's hot. And because of that, I refuse to work with or read or own a Thoth deck. Now, if I am going to a tarot reader for reading and they so happen to read with a Thoth deck, then fair enough. I'm not going to, try to convince them to read with a different deck if they feel that is the right deck to read with for that particular situation that I'm coming to them with for Divination. It's just I myself personally want nothing to do as far as owning or reading with or working with a Thoth deck. Now, as for the Rider Waite system, I know this is a very unpopular opinion, but I am not a fan of the Rider Waite system. In fact, for many years, I absolutely hated Rider Waite, and through the Rider Waite system, I absolutely hated tarot in general for with a fiery passion with Thousand Suns, and that's partly because I have a problematic history with tarot, which I might talk about at some point in the future. But just so many decks, largely based, you kind of need to know the images in a lot of ways. A lot of the books, like a lot of the tarot decks out there, the books are paperback and it can't reprint. Now, yes, there is technology that's come out in the past several years that allows someone blind to be able to basically photocopy those pages or scan those pages and get the text from them. However, the technology is still in development. It's not perfect. In fact, if it wasn't for a very healthy app called Fool's Dog Tarot, which I'll link to in the description box below, go check that out. If you haven't checked it out before, if you're not familiar with it, they basically make a series of apps where they get the license from different tarot, oracle, Lenormand, and other similar card systems decks, and create app versions of them. So it very much closes the gap as far as someone like me reading, working with, and learning, like tarot. So I no longer hate Rider Waite system. I'm still not a fan of the Rider Waite system compared to, say, Marseille. There are a couple Rider Waite decks I do read, but there's just so many things about the Rider Waite system that I just despise in some ways, or I used to despise. At this point, it's not so much I hate. It's more of I'm not fond of, and I find some of the aspects irritating, to say the least. If that makes any sense, I don't know if that does. But anyway, moving on. Question number 2: what is your favorite kind of reading to receive? That's kind of a hard question for me to answer, because usually when I'm going to other diviners, when I'm going to other diviners, be they tarot readers, be they rune readers like myself, be it some other kind of specialists in other some form of divination, I'm usually going to them to either confirm or debunk something that I've read for myself, that I found out for myself as part of my own practice or my own development or my own life. And I happen to be so close to the situation that I'm unable to be objective or objective enough. And so I feel very uncertain about it. And sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's just like, okay, I know that I'm constantly getting the same answer, pretty much the same answer, but something just doesn't feel right about the answer. Something just feels off. So I'm going to go to a diviner that, and 99% of the time I will go to a handful of diviners who I have cultivated a relationship, anywhere from an acquaintance all the way up to friendship with, that I trust. I trust to go for them from confirmation to either confirm or debunk what is going on. So usually it's about something to do with spirituality, like if I'm interacting with a possible new deity that I might end up worshiping, or a possible new spirit guide who might end up becoming a spirit companion, might end up joining my household, or something of that nature, or just asking a question. So I would have to say my favorite reading to receive is usually readings regarding, okay, either confirming or debunking something that's going on that I've already noticed or deduced, figured out through my own readings, but I'm wanting a second opinion. I'm wanting a different perspective on it. Okay, is this constantly going on? Is this actually going on? Is this actually a thing, or is it just in my head? And the thing is, this is not. It's not that I don't trust myself. I do, but I think the one thing the diviners, especially professional diviners, and I am a professional diviner, and we'll talk about that when I get to that question in this FAQ. It's, you need to be confident in your abilities, yes, but there's a time and a place where you need to know that you are just too close to the situation to really be able to see this from an objective level. And so you need to seek help. We all need help from time to time. And also, I do like to patron other diviners, because we're all trying to make a little bit of a living. And so, spreading the wealth, supporting the community. I'm a very firm believer in supporting the community. And I'm always looking for other diviners to cultivate some kind of relationship with. Okay, I don't know this person, or maybe I've read their blog, I've watched their YouTube channel. I like what I hear, I like what I read. I want to check them out. I want to check out their services. I want to see firsthand what they can do, how awesome they are. Let them strut their stuff, so to speak, from a divinatory perspective. So yeah, so I guess for the most part, the readings I prefer to receive the most would be debunking or confirming something that's possibly going on. Be it like, okay, there's a decision I need to make, and things are saying this one thing, but I'm just getting a weird feeling, or there's a new being or a new deity, or that's coming in my life, or possibly a new partner, or whatever the case may be. It could be anything, just confirming or debunking, what have you. So, yeah. Okay, yeah, okay, this is recording. My bad. All right, so question number 3: what is the most common reading you do? Daily pool, weekly reading, monthly reading, client reading. It would have to be a toss up between client readings, as I am a professional diviner, so I do a lot of client readings. But at the same time, I also do a lot of readings for myself. I'm very active with my spirituality, and I think divination is, a powerful tool of gaining insight, gaining information. And so I'm not saying that I'm doing readings every day, excuse me, either for myself or for clients, but I would say I am at least doing readings every week. I'd say at the very least I'm doing readings either for myself or for other people, um, at least 3 times a week, but usually more. Usually anywhere from 4 to 5 times a week. That's counting both myself as well as clients, as well as friends. Um, yeah, I think that's about accurate. I'm not entirely sure because it's not something I actively think about, and maybe I should, especially when it comes to client readings, to kind of do statistics or analytics or whatever the term would be, but just for my own curiosity. But yeah, it'd have to be a toss up for readings for myself as well as readings for clients. All right, question number 4. What is your most favorite kind of reading to give? Love, career, past life, law of attraction. So, first and foremost, I don't do law of attraction readings. It's not that I don't think that the concept of law of attraction is valid. I do. I just think that it is focused on way too much in modern witchcraft, modern neo paganism, modern magic, and there, without going too deep into it, it's I think there's so many easy ways for it to become problematic. Um, and maybe I'll do a video on that at some point. I don't know, but it's not really a huge part of my practice. There go. I don't really do readings for it. Now, if someone came to me and asked me and asked, "Hey, Rob, can you do a reading for me on the law of attraction?" Yeah, sure, I can do that. It's just I, I haven't. I would. Okay, so I've been counting both offline and online. I have been doing professional readings for uh, back to at least 2009, 2010, something like that. 2011, something within those 3 years. And I would say that, yeah, I have never been asked or been hired by someone to do a law of attraction reading for them. And I think part of that is because I'm very open about the fact that, yes, I'm a diviner, but I come from a perspective of practicing folk based, culture based traditions, Irish polytheism, Norse polytheism, among other things. And so primarily people come for me for readings with Ogham, readings with runes. Yes, I've been branching out the past couple years, especially this past year with like Lenormand and Oracle and Tarot to some extent, as well as other forms of divination such as shufflemancy. Um, so I'm sure at some point I will end up with at least one person that will ask me to do that kind of reading. And yeah, I'll do it. I'm more than happy to accommodate their reading requests. It's just not something that I think about. It's not something I've done before, and it's not something that I'm all that eager to do. Now, as far as favorite readings, I would actually have to say my favorite kind of reading to do would probably be readings. Actually, I can't really think of any kind of reading I don't like, but if I had to, I'd say for me, my favorite kind of reading to give someone, to do for someone, be it a free reading for friends or close friends, close family, or readings that I do for people who hire me for client, client readings. It would have to be spirituality. I'm very much a person of wanting to help people celebrate their spirituality, celebrate their practice, celebrate meeting and interacting with their ancestors, with spirits within their lives, with deities that want to form relationships with them. So for me, the readings I like to do the most is Is there a deity out there for me? Is there a spirit trying to get a hold of me? What kind of relationship will this do? Like I'm also and kind of in the same vein or similar vein is did this offering go well? Did this deity enjoy the offering that I gave to them? Those kind of readings are the things I like to do the best. They are the readings that I am most happy to do, and I would have to say my most favorite kind of reading to do for people as well as for myself to some extent. Of course, I will do almost any kind of reading. I'd say the only reading that I hate doing is the kind of readings where people are like, hey, so what am I going to be doing in the next hour? Those frivolous kind of readings, those requests, which I refuse to do, because to be perfectly honest, I feel like my time, my energy, my effort as a diviner, as a psychic, as a spiritual person, as a spiritual practitioner, is best focused, saved for, and utilized in other directions. But that's just me. Everyone is different, and I'm not going to judge a diviner who, willingly do those kind of readings as well. Question number 5. What is your reading style? Meanings, intuition, a combination of both? I'd actually have to say a combination of both. So I'm very much a meanings first. And part of that is because I'm a firm believer in knowing the meanings, knowing the traditional meanings of something, especially when it comes to Ogham and with runes. It's taken me a lot of time to know the actual meanings of the different variants because, for one thing, there are different variants to both systems out there. The different running systems, different ohms, different variants of Ogham within Ogham as a whole, and there's also a lot of misinformation, terrible misinformation out there. And also, in the grand scheme of things, I'd say both Ogham and runes. Well, okay, runes, it depends. It depends on the part of the spectrum, the community that you're coming from, divinatory wise. Like, for example, if you are doing things within the Divination community that is attached to or connected to or parallel or kind of going through the Norse polytheist heathen community, and for the most part, runes are far more common and far more prevalent than, say, tarot. But if you're doing things, if you're reading in a tarot heavy base situation, runes is kind of not as familiar, not as prevalent. People don't know it as well as, say, tarot, and that goes even further for Ogham. And I'd say that in a lot of ways, Ogham is very much underrated, not well known, and in a lot of places where it is well known, most people focus on the very misinformed variant of Ogham that has been popularized by Robert Graves. Or they focus on the triome, which the triome is valid, but from my perspective, it should not be the first form or first variant of Ogham that people should be working with. And I know at some point, very much down the road, I'm definitely going to be doing a video on that topic. But yeah, just my perspective. So yeah, it's knowing the meanings, because when I'm doing an Ogham or a rune reading for someone who has never ever had a reading with Ogham or runes before, they don't know the names of the symbols. They don't know the cultural connections or meanings. They don't know the folklore mythology that's behind things. Because yeah, a person could come to a tarot reader and they may not read tarot themselves, so they may not know anything beyond what the names for the cards are, maybe the most basic of understanding or meaning of it. For example, let's look at the death card in tarot. That it's more than just the physical death. It's the ending of things. It's the transition, the liminal, among other things. But you could kind of piece together what the bare bone basic meanings of it is by its name and by its imagery and symbology alone. Not the same with Ogham. Like if I tell someone, okay, it's like I got the fid or the symbol of the letter character of, bay, b, which is birch, literally means birch. They're not going to know what that means per se. So I do give the meanings, but I also read intuitively. Like, okay, I know the meanings. I memorize them. I know them by heart. And it's like looking at the connections between the readings between the characters, especially when I read with Omen runes, I sometimes I'll pull, sometimes I'll just pull like a couple or how many ever based on a spread or how many I've been asked to pull from my leather bags, or I'll grab a handful and toss them, and I'll read from that. Like I'll go from there. I'll read what is coming up based on the way things have landed, what direction it came up, and what lineup the runes or the Ogham has come up with, and connecting them together. And of course, I also read psychically because I am a psychic. I do have the second sight or clairvoyancy, among other things. And so I'm constantly getting things. Like I'm getting colors. I'm getting images. Not necessarily images that are of the Ogham themselves or the runes themselves, though that is very much the case, but also things that are like secondary or complementary, or things that subsidize the bulk of the reading to add extra depth and dimension to the reading. So and to go back to the tarot and oracle and Lenormand, very much meanings first. I'll always be meanings first because I'm very much someone, by my very nature, I want to know the layout of things. I want to know the traditions of things. I want to know the rules, because I feel that when you know the rules, when you know the traditions, and you know how things are supposed to be, then you can dance outside the lines. You can dance outside the lines. So you can color outside the lines. So you can do things. You can go your own way, but you can weave yourself in and out of where things should be and where things are going. Because the thing about divination, especially if you're doing things with clairvoyance or second sight or trance work or whatever the case may be, spirits, deities involved, there's a whole host of things. There's so many variables to be taken into consideration that more times than not, a spirit or a deity or the energy of the person I'm reading for themselves will throw a curveball, will throw a whole new chaotic variable into the mix. And so I have to be able to read as it comes. So knowing the meanings, and of course knowing the meanings of things, knowing the traditions of things, very much with the Lenormand and with tarot, helps grounds me in a way, gives me a solid, steady foundation to work with. I'm someone who prefers to have a very strong, very firm, stable foundation, but still has a nice scenic view out the window, so to speak, of my house of divination. I don't know where I'm going with that metaphor, so, but I think you kind of get my meaning here. So I hope that kind of answers. It's a mix of both, but it's very heavily meaning based, tradition based, first and foremost, intuitively. Being led by the energies, being led by spirits, being led by deities, being led by the threads of fate, the threads of of the everything that's in life and creation and inspiration. Letting me being inspired by the moment of the reading is secondary, but it's a very important secondary. I cannot do a reading without both. In my opinion, both are the two halves of a whole. I can't do what I do without both of them in their own way and in their own right. Question number 6. Do you just read for yourself or do you read for others as well? And I do both. I read for myself a lot of the time because I am constantly doing things in my practice. Like I have a daily practice. I don't always read for myself every day, but I do read for myself every week. And a lot of the times, and most weeks, I'm reading for myself more days than not. Sometimes it might just be like a simple pull of Ogham or runes or even a card, or it might be like, okay, here's a serious situation. I need to know the deets. I need to have the details. I need to know the nitty gritty situation. So I'm gonna do myself an intense reading. But I also do read for others. I read professionally. No, I do not have a store or anything of that nature. By my very nature of being blind and being on disabilities, I am unable to have a store such as like Etsy or other places like Etsy. Instead, I sell my services, so to speak, through my blogs, through my podcast. I hope to also do it here on YouTube in the near future. I know that there's a question. There's a question in this FAQ. There's a bit of a shameless plug, and I'll get there in a minute. But well, not in a minute, but I'll get to it when I get to it in this. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, I do read for other people. I read professionally. I also read for friends and family. I actually choose not to charge for friends and family, except in certain circumstances or in certain situations. Um, and and even in those situations, I still give my friends and family a further discount than I do like clients. Um, and there are reasons for that I don't really want to go into in this with this question. But yeah, I do read for both myself and for other people. I've been reading for my sorry, I've been reading for myself as well as for other people since the very beginning. But I've been reading professionally since roughly somewhere between 2009 to 2011, and from because I don't remember the exact day when, and all off and on since then. I've only been doing professional readings online since 2016. So yeah, take that into consideration. But I do read for both myself and for other people. There is no sort of which one I read for more. Um, because I would say in most places equal. Some weeks I read for myself more than I read for others. Uh, Other times is a little different. It all depends. It's very fluid. There is no constant consistency there. I know that may sound terrible or sound weird to some people, but it's just the nature of the game, so to speak. Wait, is this recording? Yes, it is. Sorry, my setup excuse me, while my setup is accessible and easy for me to use, sometimes my screen reader doesn't always tell me the exact moment it says recording on. So yeah, I know you can't hear that because my microphone is not picking up the voiceover that's in my earphones as I'm monitor listening to the uh, recording as I'm recording it. But yeah, anyway, so question number 7, I think it's number 7, I believe it's number 7, is how long have you been reading? And I know I've kind of already answered that previously, but I'll do it again. So I've been reading for myself for the past 15 years, the same amount of time that I have been practicing Irish and Norse spirituality. But as far as reading for other people, either non-professionally as well as professionally, I don't know the exact date. I don't know the exact years, but I know I started reading professionally offline somewhere between 2009 and 2011, and I started reading professionally online in 2006. So altogether, as far as like reading for myself, 15 years, but reading for other people, anywhere between what is it, 12 years to 9 years, or sorry, 9 12 years, something like that. I'm terrible with numbers, terrible with math. I'm sure you can do the math a lot better than I can, but yeah. So anyway, moving on with the next question. Question number 8. Yeah, question number 8 Do you prefer tarot or oracle, and why? I know I kind of already covered this, but I prefer Oracle over Tarot. Even though I'm starting to like Tarot as I'm actually learning the Marseille system and really, really getting a foundation, a good, solid foundation. Like, I actually feel like I know what the hell I'm doing reading Marseille, which the only way that I've ever felt like that with any sort of Rider-Waite system deck is, through the deck apps of Fool's Dog Tarot, and that's usually because it has text from the books in the cards if you set up the setting for that. But I generally tend to prefer Oracle because usually each Oracle deck is a self-contained system, if you think about it. Excuse me. And it's usually based on a theme. And I find the theme and the meanings of the Oracle cards a lot. I feel like there's a lot more that you can be creative with an Oracle deck than you can with a Tarot deck. Because yes, you can make a themed Tarot deck. There are a ton of them. But there are some Tarot decks, especially Rider-Waite Tarot decks, at least in my opinion, when I've looked at them, the theme may be there, but a lot of times it feels very shallow. It feels very on the surface only. Now that's not completely true across the board. In fact, my favorite vaguely based Rider-Waite deck, and I say vaguely because even the creators of the deck itself says that it's inspired by Rider-Waite, but it's not exactly a Rider-Waite deck. I'm not entirely sure how that is. I'm sure people who know Rider-Waite in general and know this particular deck better than me might be able to say, but my hands down favorite deck within the Rider-Waite system is definitely the Wildwood Tarot. And I never feel confused with it. Like, and also the theme is very much deeply held within it, like the imagery, the text, it's even within the meanings itself, and even in in the visual symbols. From what little I've been able to perceive of those visual symbols, but there have been some decks that I've come across that I've checked out that I'm just like, I don't know, this just feels boring. Like, I could tell that the theme is there, but I don't know how to describe it. It just feels shallow to me. I never feel that way with an Oracle deck. Now, yes, there are Oracle decks I hate with the fiery passion of 1,000 suns, 1,000 stars. In fact, I want to say 90% of fairy-based Oracle decks out there that I've come across I despise because they're very much focused on a particular kind of audience who have a very particular idea of the Fae that, yeah, we're not going to go there. Not in this video anyway. But that's not to say that all decks focused on or based on the Fae out there are terrible. Just most of the ones I've come across, unfortunately. Though I will say Tarot the She and Tarot the Hidden Realms, though they're actually tarot decks, are amazing when it comes to Fae-based decks in their own ways. I actually have I have a digital copy of Tarot the Hidden Realms. Don't have a digital copy of Tarot the She, unfortunately. But I hope that someday that they create a digital copy of it with Fool's Dog Tarot. So yeah, those reasons why I generally speaking, prefer Oracle to Tarot. Even though I am learning Tarot more, I'm reading with the Tarot more, and so on and so forth. When it comes to Ogham and runes, I like Ogham more than the runes, but I do like the runes a lot. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like and on a level of how much I like them both individually and compared to one another, the Elder Futhark is only half a step down or half a step behind Ogham, and that's largely because while the runes can be very tactile, the Ogham, in my opinion, by their very nature, are 1,000 times more tactile in nature, just by the construct of 20 out of 25 characters, the theta. But Irish polytheism, Irish spirituality will always be my primary form of spirituality. will always come first in my spiritual practice and their goal. It's also the first form of divination I ever learned, I ever started reading with, that I learned and felt confident in being able to read with it, to work with it, to utilize it. So it will always be my favorite no matter what. Question number 9. Do you use layering in your readings? Astrology, numerology, angel numbers, etc. To be perfectly honest, kinda, sort of, but not in the way that this question is asking. While astrology is a part of my practice, or at least part of my Roman practice, as I am also a Roman polytheist practicing Religia Romana, among other things, I don't necessarily. I don't go. I don't do. I honestly, I have no idea how people use astrology in like tarot or whatnot, and to be perfectly honest, it's not something that I really feel the need or the desire to do. When it comes to Ogham or runes, I don't use astrology whatsoever. Yes, I know that there are a lot of people who do practice the Ogham, especially practicing it the way that has been popularized by Robert Graves, do it in the way of the Celtic, the so-called Celtic tree calendar, tree astrology, and that I'm not. No, no, I refuse to talk about it in this video because it'll just turn into like a 5-hour rant. I'm not a fan of it. I hate it. And I absolutely refuse to even go near it with my own practice. So no, astrology of any kind does not enter into my practice when it comes to reading with Ogham, reading with runes, reading with tarot or oracle. Numerology, I find numerology to be kind of weird. Not in a bad way, don't get me wrong. I know plenty of people who do amazing things with numerology, but it's just something that I just don't feel necessarily comfortable with. At least numerology in a general practice, like meanings of numbers, I do work with. I've occasionally used what I like to call Ogham numerology with Ogham, where I will use like the numbers and the meanings of things based on like, okay, so like there are 25 theta or letter characters in the Ogham system. So if I'm doing this, there's a situation and certain numbers come up, like you do with normal numerology, but I get an answer. Let's say I count something together and I get 20. Well, okay, that's with IDAD. That's tradition, that's ancestors, that's history, that's things that come before, that's connected to the you. That's bone white in color, and off sort of white yellow. So yeah, something like that, kinda. But that's only with Ogham, and I've been kind of dabbling with something kind of similar for the runes, but I don't work with angel numbers whatsoever. I have no idea what that's about, and even if I did, it's not something a part of my practice, as I do not work with angels. I don't have anything against them or people who work with angels or angel numbers. It's just not part of my practice whatsoever, so I don't touch it. I tend to stay away from things or avoid things that are not part of the practices, not part of the various traditions that I practice, and that's just me. That's just the way I do things. But as far as like layering goes, the kind of layering I do, I will occasionally combine systems. I might do There's been times I've done readings where Ogham and runes will pop up in the same reading and complement each other. So I'll do that, or maybe the energies, or maybe like I'm doing an Ogham reading and I get auras come up. I get an aura of a situation, so I will layer meanings from what I'm getting from reading someone's aura combined with Ogham. Maybe I'm doing an Ogham reading or a rune reading and I'm like picking up on like a animal companion, animal spirit that's around the purpose. Maybe it's their ska, maybe it's their feel maybe it's part of their animality, or maybe it's an external animal spirit, a guide. I don't know. I don't know going into the reading, but if they're there and they're trying to tell me something to tell the client or whoever it is I'm reading for, a friend, family, myself, I will listen to it and I will definitely take that information and weave it in and layer it into the reading that I'm doing. So that's the kind of layering I do, generally speaking, for reading. All right, question number 10. What do you call yourself? What do you label yourself? Fortune teller, tarot reader, intuitive reader, psychic reader, etc., etc., etc. Well, I know I've already covered this before, but I'll do it again. I am not a tarot reader. I never have been a tarot reader. I'm not a tarot reader, and I never will be a tarot reader. And that is because, while it is a very deep topic that I can talk about, and I want to talk about it at some point, to dive deep into my opinions about it, but I'm of the opinion that being a tarot reader is more than just reading tarot cards. It is a worldview. It is a perspective. It is a state of being. Most tarot readers that I know of, especially the best ones, they live, breathe their practice as a tarot reader. Like, they view the world through the lens of tarot. Like, they are more likely, they got a problem, they need to seek insight, and they need to understand something within themselves or around them in the world. They'll go to tarot. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. That is a very powerful and valid way of doing things. There are things I find problematic within the tarot reader community, but then again, there are things I find problematic within the divination community as a whole. But being a tarot reader is still a valid practice, still a valid label, still a valid thing. I'm not a tarot reader. I did not get started with tarot. It never was, it never is, and it never will be my primary focus as far as divination goes. I would say that I'm an Ogham reader. I'm a rune reader for sure. In fact, when I call myself a rune reader, I'm also referring to Ogham, because those what I started learning first. Those two systems are, to me, what tarot is to a lot of other people. I look at the world through the lens of either Ogham or runes. I live, breathe, walk it, speak it. As my first go-to point. More so than anything else. It is the worldview by which I live and practice with, because it's an aspect of the two traditions, of a number of traditions that I practice. I do consider myself a fortune teller, and I know a lot of diviners don't like that term. They shy away from that term. But I embrace being a fortune teller partly because when it comes to, well, okay, just to be blunt, if I did not call myself a fortune teller, I would have my ass handed to me 1,000 times to Saturnalia. So amongst my practice of Religio Romana, Roman polytheism, my three patron deities is Fortuna, Apollo, and Diana. And so, fortune, it kind of comes, part of the name of Fortuna. She has literally told me that to not call myself a fortune teller would be, dishonoring her. It's almost as if I was ashamed of her, and I'm not. So there's that, but also here's the thing: I am telling someone's fortune. I am looking to the future. I can see the future. I can predict things. Does that mean that I know everything? Hell no. Does that mean that I'm never wrong? Oh hell no, I am wrong. I get things wrong. I am just a human being, just like we're all human beings. My connection to and my ability to perceive the threads of dawn and Erther, also known as Veerd, and other similar concepts is limited. I make mistakes just like anyone else, but just like other people who tell the future, can predict things, can get things, can see things, can get a glimpse of the fabric of time and space and reality and fate and destiny and all those things that are wound together in the great fabric of the cosmos. It's only a perspective. Am I correct most of the time? Yeah, yeah. But it doesn't mean that I'm infallible. I'm not. I make mistakes. I get things wrong. I get things confused. But I have no problem calling myself a fortune teller because, yes, I am telling people's fortunes. Now, I know that divination is also used for reflection, and that's valid as well, and I do that as well. But I'm primarily, when I divine, I'm primarily trying to figure out things, be that with spiritual beings, be it with the future, be it decisions, be it, okay, what is the most likely outcome based on the actions that I have taken and the reactions that have manifested based upon the actions that I have taken. Okay. What is going to happen based on my actions, the reactions surrounding it, my beliefs, my perspective, my intentions, my ideas, my emotions, my thoughts? All those things are taken into consideration. So yeah, I call myself a fortune teller. I have no problem calling myself a fortune teller. I'm more comfortable calling myself a fortune teller more so than I do psychic. And personally, I find psychic reader and intuitive reader kind of the same thing to some extent. I'm not as comfortable calling myself a psychic reader, but I do call myself a psychic reader because, yeah, I am psychic. I am very much a living, breathing example of that trope of, the blind psychic, the blind seer, the blind healer. Someone who cannot see physically, but can see spiritually and can do all kinds of awesome, crazy shit that can benefit my own life and the lives of those around me, especially my community. And sometimes that is uncomfortable, but I'm a firm believer of knowing, recognizing, owning your shit, the things, the truths in your life, for better, for worse. I think the reason why I'm not as comfortable with the term psychic reader as I am with other things is simply because there's a lot of assumptions that people have when you refer to yourself as a psychic reader. And there are several times that I've had, clients come to me, and the moment that they read or hear either I say it or someone says it about me, or they read it in one of my blogs or my website or what have you, there's assumptions that come up that just because you're psychic, that means you could do all the psychic things, that you're infallible, all that jazz, and none of that is true. Yes, I have psychic abilities. Yes, I have most of, if not all, the clairs. Yes, I'm empathic. Yes, I can do all these kinds of things. I have these various gifts and abilities, but it doesn't mean that I'm infallible or that I have everything or that I'm the most powerful person on the planet, because I'm here to tell you I'm not. And no one else is either. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, our limitations. It's our limitations that give us so much power, because it allows us to know what we can and we cannot do, and allow us to be it gives us the boundary between confidence and arrogance. There's a safety in that knowledge, that freedom of the limitations. But actually, there are times I would like to, just avoid the whole or just the whole label of psychic reader. But in my professional career as a diviner, as a fortune teller, I don't just do stuff on my own. I'm also part of a collective, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. But there are, that it's straight up part of that group has psychic in its title. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if I wasn't, I wouldn't be here. And also, to be perfectly honest, and I hate this fact, but it's a fact of life that most clients that I come across are looking for a psychic. They're looking for someone, and so using that term, as much as it is cliche, as much as it feels tacky, and I probably never will fully get over not being completely comfortable with it. It sells, and there are some terms that I'm more comfortable to use that kind of sells than others. And I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I'm sure there is a reason. I just haven't quite nailed it down yet. But yeah. The other term that I will use for myself is seer. Now, I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with that term as well because, once again, there's assumptions. But when I'm doing my thing, actually, I prefer the term seer over psychic. When I'm doing things clairvoyantly or with my second sight, when I'm doing trance work, when I'm doing spirit journeying for people, when I am, doing stuff natively without any sort of tools or anything, yeah, I prefer the term seer than do anything else because, it's a gift, it's ability, it's part of my connection. It's been with me since since I was born. It's only gotten a large part of it, especially my clairvoyancy / second sight, is only gotten stronger as the more I lose my physical ability to see. So, yeah, those are my answers for this question, for better or for worse. Oh, oops, sorry about that. So, question number 11. How did you learn to read tarot? Did you take a course, self study with a friend, or did you just start reading? So, with Ogham, as with a lot of people who get into spirituality and magic as a whole, I got involved with a book in the very beginning that was the worst. Worst book on so-called Celtic magic I've ever come across. Yeah. Anyway, actually, how I learned Ogham was, being interested in the first place and doing the research, like finding the words and what they mean, and not just the words and the names of the characters of the Theta, but also the kennings, the poetic metaphors, what they mean, also the different variants, like what the colors mean in Ogham, what the what are the birds attached to them, what those birds and what those colors mean in Irish culture, in Irish mythology. With the Elder Futhark runes, I primarily went with the rune poems, but I also looked up the origins of the words because there are this idea that that everything can be found within just by themselves. So like I'll give you an example, like Thorisaz, like it means giant, but if you go to the root of the word and go all the way back to its Indo-European root, it also means to move, motion, to put things into action. So there is this concept of force flowing, of moving, things not being inert, instead they're active. So yeah, so that's essentially how I learned Ogham and runes. It took me many years to figure out the individual meanings, and I went through a lot of misinformation, a lot of garbage as far as I'm concerned, as far as it's like, okay, this is what this means based on the common modern idea, popular idea of something. but I took the time. It took many years, a lot of tears and sweat, and I literally mean tears of frustration to figure out what exactly each character means, their names, their kennings, their metaphors, what have you. Of course, with the runes it was a little bit easier because there are great translations of the various rune poems: the Icelandic rune poem, the Norwegian rune poem, the Anglo-Saxon rune poem, or the Old English rune poem. With tarot, it's kind of interesting. I actually use the apps of Fool's Dog Tarot to kind of get an idea of specifically the tarot cards themselves, specifically within certain decks. But when it comes to the Marseille, I looked things up. I researched, used the web, used several different websites. I cannot remember what their names are off the top of my head. Oh, actually, one of them is Labyrinthos. Yeah, that's definitely one website that I do remember, and I will toss a link to it down in the description box down below. Um, but yeah, it's that's just kind of how I've learned and kind of pieced things together just by looking things up, learning myself, experimenting, going by the meanings itself. But and it's been kind of a rough process with Linnerman. Once again, Labyrinthos was my primary website that I learned how to read Linnerman. But I also use the booklets that come with the apps, because with the apps on Fool's Dog Tarot, they come with booklets, and most of the ones I found connected to the decks themselves are really great. Of course, it's kind of a mixed bag depending on which deck you're getting. Some are great, some are terrible, what have you. Okay, let's get back to work, shall we? I originally started recording this video on December 11th, or sorry, not December 11th, December 7th, and I had to take a break because I had a bunch of chores I had to get done around the house yesterday, and so now it is currently December 8th. So let's continue with the questions. So question number 12: as a reader, do you use the images or go by the meanings only? Uh, this may seem extremely obvious to anyone who knows me, but as much as I would like to utilize the images, I can't. Okay, so I'm not completely blind. I'm mostly blind. I still have some vision left, but not much. Um, and while I can still see like general shapes, colors, what have you, I cannot see the finer details all that much anymore. Or if I or with the things that I can, only about 30 to 40% detail, and that's on the best of days. I apologize if you can hear my cat in the background. He's being very affectionate right now, and I don't mind him hanging out here unless he starts becoming a bother or starts interrupting the filming process, in which case, or the recording process, I should say, in which case he's going to have to skedaddle, whether he likes it or not. But right now, he's being a good boy. But yeah, as much as I'd like to use the images, I really can't. Not to the same level as a sighted reader can. When it comes to like tarot, oracle, Lenormand, I feel like it's kind of like redundant, because it's like you don't need to see the images. Like, the names of the symbols of what the images are. Like, fox, clover, rider, dog. Like they are what they are. There's nothing really. I mean, yeah, I know that there are decks that make really fancy artwork of the Lenormand cards, but it's not necessary. Like, it's very simple if you think about it. Both Oracle decks and Tarot decks, depending on how the deck apps on Fool's Dog Tarot describes how. Anyway, sorry about that. My cat Aiden is like, I'm gonna nom on your fingers a little bit. But anyway, Where was I? Oh yeah. So some apps, most apps in the Fool's Dog Tarot describes the images on the cards. Some don't, some do. Like for example, the best tarot deck that I can think of that has been produced digitally by Fool's Dog Tarot. That no, you leave my microphone alone, buddy. This is not a toy. You're not playing with this. Thank you. Sorry about that. Um, is the Wildwood Tarot. It describes the images of the cards in extreme detail, and it's awesome. So yeah, in those cases, if I have like a digital app like the Fool's Dog Tarot, yes, I will go with the images to some extent, like especially if I know what the images are supposed to be. Um, but if I don't have a descriptive detail, a detailed description of the cards via a app like Fool's Dog Tarot, then no, I don't go with the images at all. I don't use them at all because they're worthless to me. They're useless to me. As a mostly blind person. When it comes to Ogham and runes, not really a problem because I know what the symbols are. I know what they represent. Sorry about that sound. That's my cat flicking his tail back and forth. I hope this isn't too annoying. Um, he's just super happy. He's just super happy to be here. Just kind of hang out at my computer table and just let me pet him. But and of course, the symbols are tactile, so there's not really anything image-wise to go by in the Elder Futhark runes or the Ogham. Like yeah, they're shapes, but you can't really get anything from the shapes themselves of the symbols. Just if you know what they mean, what they represent, what their symbology are, what their folklore is, what mythology is behind each of the runes, behind each of the theta or letter characters. So yeah, I'd say 99% of the time I go by the meanings only, partly because I have to, because I don't have a choice. And to be perfectly honest, I'd rather go by the meanings than the images anyway. Because sometimes, the old saying, don't trust your eyes, trust your mind, or something like. I forget that it's something that like we only see so much with our eyes, and I'd rather have, like I've said previously, I'd rather have the traditions, the meanings, to have a strong, firm foundation to grow from, to develop from, to wander off with. And sometimes the images, what your eyes see, deceives the mind behind the eyes. Um, but there are occasions where I will go with what is given by with the images, especially with decks like Wildwood Tarot. So it's a bit of a balance, but it's very much skewed extremely towards 99% of the time. My going with the meanings only, and very rarely do I work with the images of the cards, and that's like I said, only if I have like a digital app or a detailed description, either from a digital app like Fool's Dog Tarot, or if someone has described the images for me from a particular card from a particular deck. Question number 13. Do you cleanse your deck before you use it? Uh, Not so much with tarot decks or Lenormand decks or Oracle decks, but that's because I don't have any physical decks at the moment. What I do at the moment when it comes to doing readings with either tarot or Oracle or Lenormand is I have a system that I've constructed for myself, and there are other people who have similar systems, where I use a Braille die to do several rolls to obtain the cards for a particular reading. I don't own any physical decks right now. I do know of a place where I can get my hands on brailled physical decks, which are not cheap, not too expensive, but not cheap either. I just haven't gone through the effort of acquiring them yet, simply because I don't have any place to store them yet, and that's definitely on my to-do list in the coming new year. But if I did have any physical decks that we're reading with at the time being, when it comes to tarot, Lenormand, or Oracle, yeah, I would cleanse them. I would do the various cleansing rituals that I would usually do before a reading session, and that would be call upon various forces, various deities, spirits, energies within the various traditions I practice. You know, move, pull a candle, flash a candle around it, to light it with the power of fire. I might trickle a bit of cleansing smoke over it if I got any incense burning, or I do use essential oils, and so I might dab or like a drop or two on the cards. I do very much the same thing with the Ogham and the runes. When I am doing a reading and I know that they need to be cleansed, they need to be blessed, they need to be purified, I will pull out fire, smoke, and water, make holy water, make holy fire, surround it with the light, surround it with, dab it just a little bit, just with a drop or two of, holy water, say some prayers, go through the various formulas that I know of cleansing and purifying my divination tools, and just go from there. And I don't cleanse them like, okay, for example, if I am doing a long session where I'm doing readings for several different people, I don't always cleanse between every client. It all depends on, or myself for that matter, it all depends on how long the session is going, how many people I'm reading for, what is the energies of those people, what is the energies of the situations that I'm looking into, that I'm connecting with, that I'm interacting with upon doing the reading for them. Is it heavy? Is there a lot of problematic stuff going on? Is there hostility? What is, is there a bit of a taint? Do I feel the need? And it's an ongoing session. So while I will cleanse before every session, as far as cleansing between cleansing and purifying my sets, my decks, between each client I read for, will depend on any given situation. It's a very fluid sort of practice for me, or yeah, habit for me, I should say, within my practice. Question number 14. Do you have a special way of bonding with your deck? No. I have not furthered my practice with tarot, Lenormand, or Oracle of any kind to the point where I have any special methods or habits or formula of bonding, of connecting, of building a relationship with them. I have started getting myself into the habit of doing deck interviews with tarot decks and oracle decks. Not so much Lenormand decks. I feel that kind of unnecessary. As far as I'm concerned, they're very much kind of the same energy from deck to deck for the most part. Now with Ogham and runes, I do have special methods of bonding with them. When I receive a deck, especially if I've commissioned someone to craft a set for me, I should say. It's not a deck, it's a set. But be it an Ogham set or a rune set, I will do the same thing that I do to cleanse and purify and bless a set. I will put together holy, create, holy smoke cleansing, usually with juniper, with rowan, with mugwort, I should say. I will create holy water, usually based on the snow or rainwater that I've collected around the fire festivals of Samhain, Imbolc, Bealtaine, Lunasa, or Yule, or other similar holidays, depending on what set I'm working with and what tradition I'm working with, that it's connected to or based off of. I will also offer a slight dab of my own blood to the sets to magically, metaphysically, but also physically link myself to those sets. And I find that when I do this, that it links my energy, myself, to my sets in a level where they only work their best for me and with me. And after I do all that, after I sprinkle a little bit of holy water, after I, you know, work around the sets with sacred fire, allow sacred smoke to trail over it. Once I cleanse and go through the various prayers and chants and what have you that I use to cleanse and bless and purify a set, and after I bind it to myself, I will then sleep with the Ogham or rune set. Not under my pillow, but usually just be beside me. I have leather pouches or leather bags that they come in, and I will tuck them under my elbow or my armpit or whatever, usually my elbow, or sometimes even just be beside my hip, and I'll just sleep. And usually, what will happen when I do this is I will have dreams. I will have interesting dreams where I'm connecting to the spirits of the theta or the Ogham letter characters or the runes themselves, and just attuning myself to the sets themselves. And that's the way how I bond with my Ogham and rune sets. Question number 15. Do you interview your decks, some or all of them? I'm kind of realizing a bit of a theme with my answering these questions for this frequently asked questions. And that is, I'm kind of answering the questions before I actually get to the question. It's kind of weird. I do apologize about that. That's annoying. But to answer your question, yeah, I'll interview any and all tarot and oracle deck that I obtain. I don't do so for Lenormand because I don't feel the need to, because there's, as far as I'm concerned, there isn't as much of a difference from Lenormand deck to Lenormand deck as there is from oracle deck to oracle deck or tarot deck to tarot deck. So I don't bother doing so for Lenormand deck. As far as Ogham or the runes, I don't either, because as far as I'm concerned, they mean the same thing. Like, their meanings are the same regardless. Like, the rune meanings, the Ogham meanings, they are what they are. Their energies might be slightly different, the physical sets that they manifest it through and in, based on the materials that they're made of. Say, like a particular type of wood versus a particular type of stone, so on and so forth. But, I mean, the spirits of the theta and the spirits of the runes are the spirits of the theta, the spirits of the runes. So I don't need to interview, each set that I get. They are what they are. Like, I have a relationship with the spirits of the theta. I have a relationship with the spirits of the runes. And so, like, occasionally I will connect with those spirits, to interact with them, to kind of say, hey, how are you doing? Are you pleased with my work? Do you want me to change what I'm doing? Like, is this working? Is this successful? Is this a failure? What's going on? And I have had situations in the past where I was like working a lot with a particular type of divination and kind of neglecting my relationship with the spirits of the theta, the spirits of Ogham, and the spirits of the theta were very jealous, and they were just like, yeah, we're not gonna be cooperative until you give us a little bit more of attention. And it's like, damn, okay, all right, fine, cool. But for the most part, I have a great relationships with the spirits of the theta and the spirits of the runes, spirits of both Ogham and Elder Futhark. And so, yeah, I mean, but every once in a while, it is great to like sit down and interact with them. But that isn't the same as formally interviewing, say, like a tarot deck or an oracle deck, in my opinion. Could be wrong about that, but that's just my thoughts on it. Okay, I am recording. Yes. All right, question number Is this question number 16? Hold on real quick. Is this question number 16? Apparently I've lost count and I can't. Yes. All right. Yes, I am on question 16. All right. Good. Good to know. Because otherwise I will feel like a dumbass. All right. So question number 16. Do you feel that different decks have different personalities or their own person? Do you feel like each deck has their own personality, and do they read differently? Yeah, I would say yeah, very much so. I've noticed that the decks that I've played around with, that I've read with for a couple of times, they very much have their own personalities. Like, to give an example, the Wildwood Tarot feels very much otherworldly. It feels. I really don't like using the term shamanistic, but it kind of does have that feel, that sort of hedge witchy feel, that sort of you walk into the woods and you're no longer in woods, or as the case may be from the Wizard of Oz, you're no longer in Kansas Toto. Instead, you're in a different place altogether. And so, a nexus of walkways and, labyrinthine, passageways and liminal spaces and energies. So, and like, for example, another example, the Robinwood Tarot feels very whimsical, while the Tarot of the Hidden Realms feels very playful a lot of the times. So yeah, I yes, very much so that I very much believe that different Oracle decks, different Tarot decks have their own personalities. From an animistical point of view, I am much of an animist as I am a polytheist. So yeah, I believe that definitely they can pick up their own energies. As far as like reading differently, yeah, I would say the same thing. Like, I've noticed that, say, once again, the Wildwood Tarot is reads. It's very great when I'm trying to like figure out things, like trying to connect to different otherworldly beings, or I'm trying to um, trying to figure out things that are spiritual, or I'm trying to like those sort of like the soul, dealing with the soul, for example. That's what that deck is very great for, and it is perfect when I'm doing those kind of readings of tarot. While Robinwood Tarot, for example, is great. I feel reads great for when you're like trying to do like real life world problems, like mundane issues, like love, life, career, those kind of things. There are other decks that do just as well as the Robinwood Tarot. I'm just using that as an example. Of course, the Tarot of the Hidden Realms is best when you're trying to like reach out to the Fae through tarot, and it's very very cultural neutral. That deck is. So what I mean is that you're not bound by a particular kind of Fae from a different particular kind of culture when trying to connect with them. That you may end up being or feeling if you say we're trying to do it with Ogham or runes. Now, with Ogham and runes, the different sets themselves don't have personalities, but the spirits of the theta, or letter characters in Ogham, and the spirits of the runes, the individual runes, they very much have their own personalities, their own energies. Just to give you an example, the energy of Dare, of the Ogham Fid Dare, letter character Dare, which literally translates as oak, one of the few theta that actually has tree names. Contrary to popular belief, most of the Ogham theta, or letter characters, don't actually translate as tree names or plant names. There is a variant of Ogham called the tree Ogham, where they do all have plants or trees that are connected to them, but only a select few of the actual letter characters in Ogham actually have names that translates into tree names, and Dare is one of them. And Dare's energy feels very, very strong, very formal, very sophisticated, very, very developed, but also very, very self-contained, sometimes strict, very serious. Dare takes itself way too seriously sometimes. Just to give an example. Another example is Raido from Runes. It's like Raido has this, hey, fast energy, come on, man, let's go. We got places to be. Hurry it up. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Kind of energy to it. So yeah, I feel like the individual letter characters are feta of and definitely the individual runes of the different rune sets. Elder Futhark specifically definitely have their own personalities and their own energies. Question number 17. Do you read the guidebooks? Yes, most of the time. I would say almost all the times, though it depends. For like I said, I can really only read the guidebooks if I am using one of the tarot or oracle apps from Fool's Dog Tarot. And a lot of the times, the apps will have the meanings of the cards in the app itself without you having to go into the book. Like if you open up the card, you like one of the settings in all the apps is how much meaning do you want shown on the card. So a lot of them will go into great detail describing and spelling out the meanings of the cards. So with decks like that are set up like that, I most of the time I don't bother reading the guidebooks. I just read the meanings that are on the cards. Excuse me. But there are some decks where they actually don't share any of the text, or if they do share some of the text of the meanings of the cards from the particular guidebook that's connected to that deck, they only show like maybe a sentence or two. And in that case, yes, I do look at the guidebook because being someone who's mostly blind, I don't have the luxury of looking at the images as a guide to the meanings of the cards. I have to have the text. Like I gotta have the guide. So yeah, the guidebook is a must have for me. It is necessary for me to pick up the meanings, the energies, the ideas behind the concepts being shared through the particular theme of a particular specific deck. And sometimes that could be annoying because the guidebooks on these apps aren't accessible in of themselves, but I've found a way around that. See, there's a handy little app called Voice Stream Scanner, and it's an OCR app that basically allows you to take pictures, and if the pictures have text in it, it will convert it into a text document. So what I do is I go through these books and these guidebooks and screenshot all the pages and turn them into text documents and put them together so I can read them. And usually that takes me anywhere from a day to half a week to get that done, depending on how big the guidebook is. But essentially I only really do that when I'm working with a deck or I'm trying to read a deck that doesn't really supply much, if any, of the meanings on the cards themselves. And yeah, so question number 18. What is your favorite way to store decks? Essentially, tarot bags. Tarot pouches, which unfortunately I have not found a great one yet, because most of the tarot bags I found are the ones that have the ties, and I'm terrible with them. Now, a year ago, I actually tried looking to get my hands on a craftsperson who would make custom tarot decks to make them accessible for me, so that I can differ. I can tell one deck from another without having to open it up and looking at the cards that are brailled. And unfortunately, the person that I tried that with last November, November of 2020, turned out to be a grifter and a scam artist, and she took my money and she ran. But I have found a couple people that I'm currently looking into their services and see if they're a good fit. And if they are, essentially, they make leather cases that are either buttoned or have magnetic clasps. And I plan on getting some of them and using them to store my tarot decks, Lenormand decks, Oracle decks, what have you. Now, when it comes to runes and Ogham, 99% of the time when you get a ogham or rune set from a craftsperson, they come with bags, with pouches. In fact, the rune and ogham decks I do have come in great leather bag sauce pouches that have belt loops on them, so I can attach them to my belt and just go with them. Now I do have a couple sets that I've got from other people in the past. Like I have a brailled ogham set that did not come with a like the bag that came in was terrible, but I had a zippered denim bag or pouch that my mom had given me several years ago from where she used to work at Accordia, and so I keep my brailled set of ogham in that particular bag. But yeah, those are my favorite ways to store ogham and rune sets, as well as tarot decks, oracle decks, and Lenormand decks in bags slash pouches, especially if they're they're button closed, or if they have magnetic clasps or something like that, or snaps, or even Velcro. And bonus points if they're made from leather, but I will take ones made from denim, or a strong cloth or whatever. And yeah, that's just how I like to store my divination tools. Question number 19. Do you pair your decks with a crystal? And if so, do you use a certain kind of crystal? Okay, this is gonna turn into kind of a bit of a rant or a tangent, depending on how you look at it. I don't. Okay, before I get into it, I just want to say okay. The answer is just simply no, and I'll explain why here in a minute. But and this is not me bashing the various witchy, pagan, polytheist, and diviner communities for doing this, or having such a massive interest or fondness for crystals. I don't understand it. Okay, I don't get the craze of crystals, and it's not that they're not pretty. Don't get me wrong. I think most of them are extremely pretty, but I don't get the practice whatsoever. And what I mean by that is I've gone into groups. Hell, I have been kicked out of groups, witchy groups, pagan groups, what have you, because I don't have a crystal practice. In fact, I've even had people tell me point blank to my face that I'm not a witch, or insert other terms, simply because I don't have a crystal practice. What? What the absolute hell? Okay, just once again, I'm not bashing anyone who does have a crystal practice, especially I'm not bashing people who pair crystals with their decks. I don't understand it. I don't understand the craze of crystals with the general witchy community, and that's okay. And it's not for lack of trying, because like my local spiritual community, the blind spiritual group I'm part of, like I am the only person who's a part of that group who does not work with crystals at all. And it's not for a lack of trying. However, I have two big issues when it comes to working with crystals. One, for some strange god's forsaken reason, I cannot properly connect with tumbled crystals. Apparently, something about the process of tumbling stones does something to it where I cannot connect properly with it, so I cannot work with, I cannot interact with the energies of those crystals. Which is weird, because when I've asked around, people think I'm crazy or that I'm lying, or whatever. In fact, the only exceptions to the no working with tumbled crystals rule I've found is when it comes to tumbled crystals that I have blood bonded with. I have coated it with my blood. I've done a ritual to bind itself to my energies. Those are the only tumbled crystals I seem to be able to work with. Now, if I get my hands on natural stones, natural versions of crystals that have not been tumbled with, it seems to work a lot better and a lot easier. I don't know what that is. What that's about, I don't know. It makes no sense to me. the second big issue I have with working with crystals, and the reason why I don't have a practice of crystals, is when I hear people toss around the various meanings of crystals, my mind instantly goes, okay, where do these meanings come from? Do they come from particular tradition or various traditions, particular culture, various cultures? Because I know that not all crystals are native to all areas in the world, but I'm just like, where do these meanings come from? Are they just are they shared verified gnosis through various occultists, witches, what have you, over the past centuries? It makes no sense for me. Like, when I hear a particular crystal is good for something or can do something, my mind goes, okay, but why? How do we know this? Where does this lore come from? Can you please give me a straightforward answer? And no one seems to be able to do so. So until I can find some kind of book that tells me the sources of where these various lures of these various crystals come from, I refuse to even try to build a relationship with crystals or to include crystals in my practice. And I guess a third thing, if I had to continue, the various traditions I practice don't, as far as I can tell, don't really traditionally have any connection with crystals that I've been able to find. At least not in the way that is practiced by modern mainstream witchcraft and or paganism, for that matter. And that's not necessarily bad. It's nor is the modern practice that a lot of people have is bad either. It's a valid practice. It's just, like I've said previously in this video, I tend to avoid things that are strictly not parts of the traditions I practice at all. Yes, I do occasionally dabble with things that I find interesting, that I find that can be a healthy and useful inclusion in my practice in a general sense. But I don't know. I just haven't felt the need with crystals, and until I can, until I can really find a solution to problem number 2, it's just not going to be part of my practice. But even that aside, it just bemuses and baffles me at how strong people have seemed to hold crystals in high regard, and how easily a lot of people seem to lose their absolute shit when you say, well, I don't work with crystals. Like I said, I've had several times in the past where I've had people accuse me of not actually being a witch simply because I don't work with crystals. So anyway, getting back to the crux of the question at hand, no, I don't pair crystals with either my rune or ogham sets, and I don't pair crystals with tarot decks. Yes, I have bought ogham and rune sets in the past where it come with crystals, or I've bought other things and I'm like, well, that's nice. Well, unfortunately, the person who gave this to me as an extra gift for being a good customer did not bother to put anything in the box or the bag that gives you a label what kind of crystal it is. And of course, kind of going back to my tangent for a bit, I guess that's problem number 4. It's kind of hard for me to tell what crystal is which. I do have some untumbled crystals, and I still keep them in the bags because I haven't found a box yet or anything, a container that I feel comfortable keeping them. And they did come with the tags that tell you what they are. I just haven't learned the shapes of those individual crystals yet. And once again, I have no idea if I'll ever find a solution to problem number 2. So, and until I do, I refuse to even try to build a practice with crystals, much to the irritation, confusion, and of the people who are close to me in my practice, in my personal practice, part of my local community. But that's just me. Once again, I am not bashing anyone who does pair crystals in general, or specific crystals with their decks or their sets. I think it's a valid and powerful practice. If you do, it's just, I don't do it. And these are the reasons why. Okay, it's this recording. Once again, my phone is doing the weird thing with voiceover where it's not telling me when it's actually recording, which is really annoying. All right, question number 20. Do you read reversals? If so, why? If not, why? In fact, my answer to do I read reversals, be it with tarot, uh, Oracle, Lenormand? Can you even read reversals with Lenormand? It's like I haven't seen that as an actual thing in Lenormand tradition, but to be perfectly honest, I've only been um, learning and reading and studying Lenormand for the past year or so, so maybe I just haven't come across it yet. I don't know. But I don't read reversals with either of those, and I most definitely don't read reversals with Ogham or with the runes. So it's not a no, I don't read reversals. It's a hell no, I don't read reversals. And once again, it's a valid practice if you do read reversals. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to try to stop you. You do you. I honestly think that is perfectly awesome that you do read reversals if you do read reversals. I don't. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, because I feel like the straightforward meanings of the cards, of the theta, of the runes are enough. Like, I don't feel like you need to add, reversals or extra version or opposites or, an extra side of meanings. Like, I think that there's enough both positive and negative meanings within all the cards, with all the Ogham theta, with all the Elder Futhark runes. Like, it all depends on the situation and the cards and the runes and the theta that pop up and how they're read and all kinds of variables that come into play. Second of all, the second big reason why I don't read reversals is because as a blind person, reading cards, reading runes, or reading Ogham with my fingers, it's a lot difficult to try to read them with my fingers in a tactile fashion when they're upside down. So I'm going to switch them back to back right up, to the proper side, so that I can read them. So I feel it's like unnecessary. And yes, there as much of modern traditions of reading reversals, reading runes, rune side down, and what those mean in the runic practice. Not so much with Ogham, but I'll get to that here in a minute. But actually, I'll wait till I get to reason number 3. Yeah, reason number 3. But yeah, so essentially, like, when if I got a card in reverse, if I got a rune or a thid in reverse, I'm just gonna pop that back to the right side so I can read it properly. So I don't see the point in reading reversals for that reason as well. And reason number 3. So, like, a lot of people get started with divination through tarot. I did through Ogham. And the thing with Ogham is that you literally cannot read reversals. Even though there's a lot of people who get into Ogham, especially coming into it from tarot, who try. But, and I guess if you really want to get technical about it, you kind of can, but it doesn't really work. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because the reason that the way that Ogham is physically set or manifested or put together in sets, is you have a center line and you have the first 5 theta of Ogham. Depending on if you have the thid or the letter character facing vertically or horizontally, you're either going to have the first 5, and they're essentially tally marks. So Bay, the first thid of Ogham, is one line to the right or to the bottom, depending on how you're looking at the thid, of the center line on an Ogham thid. And then, of course, the next one, Loosh, the second one is 2, and so on and so forth. The second, theta 6 to 10, are to the left. So you literally cannot read reversals, because if you tried, well, you're not getting that thid in reverse. You're getting the, like for example, if you were trying to read Bay in reverse, well, you're not reading Bay in reverse. You're reading Uath, which isn't a reversal of Bay. It's its own thid. It is, in fact, it's Ogham thid number 6. So it does not work that way. And then, of course, theta 11 to 15 are diagonal lines through the center line, and then theta 16 to 20 are horizontal lines through the center line. Of course, theta 21 to 25 are different. They're not tally lines, they're symbols, but the symbols are made as such that you still can't read them reverse. At least not the way that people want to. And because I learned Ogham first, because I tend to look at the world, my worldview, my practice is through the lens of Ogham, and to a slightly lesser extent, though not really, with runes. I don't see the point. I see it as pointless personally. Now with runes, there are some runes that you can read in reverse, some you cannot. There is a tradition of reading reversal. They're called Merkstave. Now, I personally have not found the origin of when and where the term Merkstave popped up, let alone if it actually legitimately refers to what is being used as in modern rune divination practice. So I just avoid it. I just like I said, I don't see any use for it. It's not prevalent or relevant in my personal practice. I think that the meanings as they are, there's enough both in positive and negative meanings of all the runes, all the Ogham Theta, all of the cards and tarot and oracle, that it's just, it's not part of my practice. Never has and never will be a part of my practice. And that is just as valid as people who do read reversals. Question number 21. Do you have a special certain shuffle that you do? The answer is no. In fact, when it comes to cards, I am absolutely terrible at shuffling. In fact, I've accidentally destroyed cards in the past just with playing cards or with Uno cards, both brailled and non-braille. Non-braille being back in the day when I could still read print. Trying to shuffle. So my version of shuffle when it comes to shuffling cards is more cutting than is cutting and stacking and doing it several times. And to some extent, it's I do it more than the average person shuffle their cards, just so that I know without any doubt that I have spread the cards around in the same way that a typical shuffling would do. Now, when it comes to Ogham and runes, I do shuffle. Not in the way one will shuffle cards, but it's more I'll spread the runes and theta around. I'll mix them. I'll twirl them about in whatever container I'm reading with, and I'll do that like 2 or 3 times before I'm satisfied, and then I'll just I'll read from there. I'll either pull runes or theta from that pile that way, or I'll grab a handful and toss them in a cast. So yeah, I don't really have anything special or unique or awesome like a lot of people do. And I say that because there are some amazing readers out there that have some just downright wickedly awesome epic ways of shuffling, mixing, their cards, their runes, what have you. And I totally confess that I am absolutely blueberry jelly jealous of what they do and how they do it. But unfortunately, my fingers are not as dexterous as I would like to be able to do that kind of thing. Oh. Whoops. Sorry about that. I pressed the record button just a little bit before I was actually ready to record. So question number 22. Do you read professionally? And if so, shameless plug should be inserted right here. So yes, I like I've said before previously in this video, earlier in this video I should say, yes, I do read professionally. No, I do not have a specific shop that you can go to, such as like on Etsy. No, I don't do any of the psychic hotlines, anything like that. I read from myself, and the reason why I don't have any shop or anything like that is because being on SSI, being on disabilities, I am limited in how much extra money I can make, and I am limited by the way that certain shop sites operate. Places like Etsy does things that if I set up a shop through them, I could potentially lose my disability. And at this point, I don't make enough money through Divination to that I feel like that I could let go of my disability check. At this point, doing readings isn't so much making a living, but is subsidizing and giving me additional funds on top of the money that I make through my disabilities as a blind person. Same reason why I don't use Patreon, because the way Patreon is set up, they actually basically tattle on you, and in a way that even if you just like make within the limit, you still get penalized for some strange reason I don't understand. But which is why I actually do read professionally. I read professionally through my blogs, my blog/website, through my podcast. Or I'm hoping to start doing professional readings through my podcast in the near future, and on my different pages such as Facebook, so on and so forth, Instagram, what have you. I'm still putting together my brand. I've been putting together my brand off and on for the past couple years. Just, yeah, things keep getting in the way, but I'm taking it a little bit more seriously now. I'm hoping to set it up a little bit further. Speaking of which, hopefully by the time I have this video uploaded or a couple days after the fact, I hope to have like my basic services page posted on my website, which I will post a link to down in the description box. But if anyone's listening to this and would like to, commission me for a reading, hey, I am always available and willing to do so. Just get a hold of me. And I also plan on doing professional readings on here. I will be adding YouTube videos as an option as far as how people can receive their videos, either publicly or privately. Anyway, but yeah, I do it through my brand of Blind Robert Brown. I mostly do it by myself individually, but I am also part of a collective of diviners, witches, and spirit workers called Tarot and Tea, and I will link that side down below as well. And it is an awesome place of excellent people, very skilled, talented people. I am both proud and honored to be a member of Tarot and Tea. The website is still very much under construction, but it is an excellent place to be, and I love being a part of it. And yeah, so I do read professionally. I mostly read professionally, like I do, and I don't just like it's not just my services isn't just Divination. I'm also a witch for hire. I am a spirit worker for hire. I do pretty much do a lot of different things, but as far as Divination goes, I mostly read runes and Ogham. I do shufflemancy. I do at this point professionally read Lenormand. I am still working on getting comfortable enough and confident enough to add both Oracle and Tarot into the mix. When it comes to Tarot, I will probably be reading Marseille variant of Tarot professionally before I start adding and reading professionally with the few Rider-Waite Tarot decks I actually have in my possession from a digital standpoint. But yeah, so I've been reading professionally since somewhere between 2009 and 2011. But I've only been reading professionally in an online capacity since 2016. So yeah, and instead of like a shop, I mostly receive and accept payments through places like PayPal, Cash App, Vimeo, so on and so forth. So yeah, and as far as how I charge things, I have a couple different ways of doing it. I mostly charge like $5 per card or rune or Ogham Fid. But if I'm doing like a live reading for someone, be it through Skype or Telegram or Discord or WhatsApp or even on the phone or even in person, and then it's like $15 for 15 minutes, $30 for 30 minutes, $60 for 60 minutes. It gets a little bit more expensive depending on the type of service. Like, for example, if someone's wanting me to do a Grand Tableau Lenormand spread, that's the basic price is $75. There are oracular, ecstatic and oracular trance rituals that I do in a divination capacity, that is somewhere between the $60 and the $80 range, just because it requires a lot of materials, a lot of resources that I have to um, add as part of the ritual beforehand. And of course, I offer um, something in similar categories, but nowhere near as involved or as in depth for lesser price. I try to make my price ranges at different levels, so just about anyone can afford. As a person who's blind, one of my policies and goals is to add options that people who are in situations like mine can afford my services. It's just one of the ways I kind of give back to the community, so to speak, while still making something of a living and subsidizing the money that I make through disabilities while I'm doing it. There's so much more I can go into this, but that's pretty much what I I'm glad. Yeah, I'm cool with what I said here. Moving on. Question number 23, I think. Yeah. Do you keep a tarot journal, and if so, why? I think it's part of the question. I don't. Um, I don't really keep a formal journal per se. What I do what I do in my practice, however, is either via audio or through a word processor. I will record the readings that I do either for myself, and I also record the readings I do for people. And the reason why I do that for other people is for a couple of reasons. One, so that when people come back for me for further readings, I have something to kind of look at and go, okay, that's where things were beforehand. Let's see where things are now, especially if people come to me for a follow-up reading on the same subject that I've read for them before or something similar as an ongoing thing. The other thing, the reason why I keep or why I record readings that I do for other people is to look at the way the things that I've done before and to try to improve, to further develop my skill, my ability, and the way I do things. But as far as recording things for myself, I just do it so that I have records. So I look at the development of certain situations, be it like ongoing situations with like a new spirit guide or companion, a new deity in my life that I'm building a relationship with. Could be a Monday situation, where, okay, well, things were looking great at first, but as things developed and as I took certain actions, the readings got worse and worse, or it could start out really, really bad and gotten hell of a lot better as things have developed further and I've done further readings. So not so much a formalized divination journal as such, but I do keep extensive records of all the readings I've done, as well as things such as when I've different techniques that I've come up, different spreads that I've made for the various different divinations that I do, be it for Ogham, runes, tarot, Lenormand, what have you. Not so much for Lenormand, but you know what I mean. And my thoughts, my feelings, what has worked, what has not worked, what has been epic failures, what have been epic successes, etc., etc. Question number 24. Do you have a preferred environment to read at, or can you read anywhere, or a combination of both? I would say for the most part, I can read just about anywhere. I mean, like, if I'm like trying to read somewhere and there's like a concert going on or something where there's a lot of noise and a lot of activity and it's high energy, no, I really can't read in those in those places, because just too much noise, too much sensory overload, too much of a distraction. But other than that, I'd say I can read just about anywhere. Now, as far as my preferred reading environment, it would be, like if I'm at my home or if I'm at someone else's place, and I'm very much a believer of, hospitality, of having, being in a hearth and home, sit back, relax, a nice sofa, nice recliner. So, I definitely prefer that. Even if I'm doing readings for people online, like I still want to get cozy. I still want to, get comfortable. But if I'm like reading like in a public place, I don't really have a preferred a preferred environment. And I know that there are a lot of diviners, especially when they're doing like live events, where they're going to want to have their place set up with like crystal balls and candles and such. And okay, I'm not bashing whatsoever. I'm not judging whatsoever. I'm not criticizing whatsoever. That's valid. If it works for you, awesome, awesome. Cool beans, awesome sauce, everything, a bag of chips, and all that, and whatever, however that phrase goes. But none of that is really necessary for me. So I'm not too picky. Just as long as I'm comfortable and I'm not distracted, and the person I'm reading for is awesome, and I can get in the tune, I can get in the zone. The only things I really require is my tools, the things I use to cleanse with, and I usually bring like a backpack or a satchel or something with me that I keep everything in, that I bring with me, I take with me as I go. But other than that, yeah, I pretty much read just about anywhere. Really require is comfort. Home style comfort is the best. Southern hospitality is the greatest, but sometimes you're in a position, you're in a situation, you're in an environment where that's not possible, such as live events. But I'm cool with live events, or I'm cool with like hanging out in a cafe or at Starbucks or whatever and doing readings for people. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. It's not my most preferred environment to read with, but it doesn't bother me in the least. Question number 25. Can you show us your newest deck? And the answer to that is no. Not because I don't want to, but because doing so would be problematic, would be kind of a pain in the ass, because I have a very particular way of how I do these videos with this format. And it's really easy for me to paste images of cards, in the case of tarot, or runes, or the Theta from Ogham, and attach them to individual clips. Yeah, just the way I'm doing this, no, not so much. So, yeah, I do apologize for that. I'd say the last deck I bought a digital app for was the Mystical Tarot, because supposedly it is based off of the old style Italian tarot decks, and I'm really interested to see how similar it is, or how different it is from like Marseille, or from Rider Waite, or what have you. So if you want to, you can go look up those images online. I know you can find them on Eclectic Tarot. I will link that. I will do my best to link that down in the description box below as well. But yeah, no, I just yeah, I don't feel like trying to go through the hassle of that. Sorry if that disappoints you, but it's just too much of a problem, or it's just too problematic for me to do so, at least right now. Question number, is this 26 or 27? Let me double check this. Should have done that beforehand, but I didn't. And now I'm paying the piper for it. Okay, yeah, it is question number 26. Question number 26. Do you ever dream in tarot symbolism? No. Nada. Never. And I think that kind of is part of the reason why I'm not a tarot reader, because it's not part of my worldview. It's not the primary focus of how I view things, or identify things, or perceive things from a divinatory perspective. I have dreamt with both Ogham and rune symbolism before. Like, I've had dreams where the spirits of the Theta, or the spirits of the runes have come to me and have given me runes to let me know what the day, or what the week, or what some crazy event that I'm preparing myself for, will most likely be, or most likely come. Or I have had, I've had the symbols of the Theta or the runes show up in a dream to let me know, okay, there's something not quite right, or there's something that you're dealing with in your mind, in your heart. excuse me, and these are what we're trying to tell you. So yeah, I have done that, but no, I have never dreamt tarot symbolism with tarot symbolism before. Not to say that it will never happen, but I will be highly surprised if it ever does. Question number 27. Do you ever compare moments and events with the tarot archetypes all the time or ever? And once again, like with the previous question, the answer is no, not at all. Never. I do, however, do that all the time with either or both Ogham and runes. Like I'll see situations like a pair. It's like, okay, we got a new beginning coming up. All right, this is Bay, this is Berkano, or okay, I realize I need to sit down and have a communication. This is definitely an Ansus time. Or I need to get going. This is a Raido or an on time. Or I'll have like moments pop up and it's like, okay, that's just, that's interesting. Compare this. Let's see, how do I compare this to the Ogham or to the rune? So yeah, I definitely compare moments and events that have happened to both the Ogham and the runes all the time. But no, I don't do it with tarot at all. Question number 28. How often do you read the cards? Daily, weekly, monthly? I would say weekly. Honestly, to be perfectly honest, whenever I'm doing a reading, either for myself or someone else, well, when it's for myself, I am almost always going to read with Ogham or runes. The only time I really pull out the cards is when there's a situation. It's like, okay, I'm getting the feeling that I need to work with the cards, or if I feel like I want to practice. Practice-wise, I'll read the cards. I'll read the tarot cards, for example, once, at least once a week, just to keep my practice up, just to keep the edge sharp, so to speak. But usually I only read with tarot, Lenormand, or oracle for other people when they ask. As far as for myself, for like Lenormand, I will read like, I'd say at least once a week, sometimes a couple times a week. As for with Ogham and or runes, both as well as individually, I've had some weeks where I've read them every day of the week, but most of the time it's usually anywhere between 2 to 4 times a week. I'd say on average 3, like a solid 3 times a week at least, for the most part, that I am reading with Ogham, I'm reading with the runes. Yeah. Question number 29. Are you currently taking a course or offering a course that you would like to share with others? No, I'm not taking any courses at the moment, and I don't plan on doing so anytime in the future. Though, if I do come across someone who's doing a pretty decent course on Tarot Marseille, I might change my mind on that. At the moment, I am doing a informal course on the Elder Futhark runes. I'm in the on Clubhouse, hosted by the collective Tarot that I'm part of, that I mentioned in a previous question. But I am, and I do that, every Saturday, or almost every Saturday, depends on what's going on. But unless something comes up, I do it every Saturday at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you happen to be on Clubhouse and you would like to learn a little bit about the Elder Futhark runes, come look me up over there. But I am slowly putting together a long-term course on how to teach both the runes and the Ogham, separately, individually. But and those are courses that I'm putting together for that I can just teach to the general public, that I can put out there for people to advertise. But I am always willing and available to teach people one-on-one, how to work with the runes, how to read with the runes magically, and with the Ogham as well, how to read them, how to work with them magically, and am willing to sit down with anyone who is interested, especially after listening to this video, and putting together a decent a decent and affordable price to do that. But as far as a formal course, I am in the early stages of putting together a course, a course load, or a workshop, if you will, on how to work with, how to read, how to practice magic with the Ogham and the runes. It's just a matter of time. It might take me the next. I'm hoping to get both of them, or at least one of them, up and running by sometime next year. But we shall see how long it takes me and everything else around that. Okay, so question number 30. Can you offer one bit of advice to someone new coming to Tarot Oracle from your own perspective? No, not really. I haven't practiced either reading or working with either Tarot Oracle long enough that I feel comfortable and confident of doing this. But as far as runes and or Ogham goes, the one bit of advice I would give anyone new coming to either or both, is take your time. Don't rush into it. Take your time not only to learn about it, and don't just learn about the meanings, but the cultures that they come from, the folklore behind, the individual runes, the individual feta, the individual poetic metaphors that are bound up within, with the runes and Ogham. And just in case anyone doesn't know, I'm referring to as far as poetic metaphors. I'll give you an example. I think it's within the Norwegian rune poem for Thehu. Wealth is a source of discord amongst kinsmen. It is also the fire of the sea and the path of the serpent. So looking at what those poetic metaphors mean, the folklore behind it, the mythology behind it, will make you a far more well-rounded diviner with those systems, and will make your attempts to work with, to read, far more successful than otherwise. I would also, connected to that, I would also just take your time, take your own time, go at your own pace, to learn, because there is a lot of misinformation out there about both systems, and it could get, I would say, in a lot of ways, it's easier to get confused and caught up in the misinformation with runes and Ogham than it is with tarot. So just take your time, ease yourself into it, do everything you can to learn about all the little nitty-gritty details. Yes, it's a lot of work, but if you're truly wanting to learn, to read, to practice magic with Ogham and the runes, then you're going to want to do the hard work of learning about it, to have a fully fleshed out, well-rounded idea, concept, knowledge, understanding about the systems that you're working with. Because there's a saying in the runes that not knowing them, not truly knowing and understanding them, it will get you into trouble, will cause you all kinds of problems from a magic perspective. You don't want to do that. So, and of course, not everyone who gets into working with or reading the runes and or the Ogham do it from, or doing it, or wanting to do it from a magical perspective, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So just take your time, go at your own pace. Don't allow others to rush you. Do what you can to look up the, all the best information and the misinformation, why they are misinformation, why they are bad information about these systems, and just come at it with an open mind and an open heart, I would say. And as long as you do all these things, you're going to be just fine. Hey everybody, Blind Rob here one last time. I just want to take a quick moment and thank everybody for listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed the content that you found here today. Please let me know how you felt and what you thought about this video by leaving a comment and or giving it a like. I also invite anyone wishing to listen to further videos to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all videos I create in the future. Last but certainly not least, I also invite anyone wishing to support my content to leave me a donation via either my Ko-fi or Buy Me a Coffee accounts. You can leave a single donation or become a monthly member. Either way, your support helps me to make more content for you in the future. Thank you for your support. Take care, my friends and listeners.